button, and then we are off to the races. Okay, we are officially recording. Good evening, guys. Welcome to the Virtual Village October community meeting. Again, I believe this is our fifth, if not sixth, I think we started in May, virtual community meeting, and we've enjoyed them. I think the format has been great. We've had some really good attendance. I'm going to be a little bit quicker up front than we have been in the past. You know, many of these, and I encourage you to go back and look at the last month or even the month prior. Certainly September and August were packed with, you know, information from the city relative to city initiatives and just information that we're trying to get out there. So again, you know, we are the Village Neighborhood Association. We are here to represent you in the only way that we know how, or that we are entrusted to, which is to inform you and just to help you make your own decisions. Again, informed decisions. So we're here to inform, and what we've been doing for the last couple of months is really putting out a lot of useful information. We've had you know, the pleasure of Mayor Fulop joining our meeting. We were the first neighborhood association to host Mayor Fulop for a meeting, so we kind of like that. We had Councilperson Solomon join us tonight. We have Jake Hudnut, who has Wasim with him, and I'm just going to jump into the agenda as soon as I share my screen. Gosh, it's like 6 months of Zoom, and I'm still making rookie moves. Okay, here we go. And then we have a couple of really cool, exciting development presentations that I don't want to take too much time away. I will say, as a disclaimer, just going into this, I had a little fun with our graphics. Please don't misunderstand them to be, you know, nefarious or creepy. I think I even put a skull on a photo of Jake on the street. So this is all meant to be in good fun. I love October, I love Halloween, so away we go. October 12th, Virtual Village Neighborhood Association. I'm Eric Hoffman. I am the president of the Village Neighborhood Association for this banner year of 2020. We have a number of people that have been contacting us via our info@jcvillage.org email. So I encourage you to use that. You see it on the screen. If you want to reach me personally, eric.hoffman@jcvillage, 1F, 2 N's. I am joined by a really stellar board of directors. Again, a shout out to Robinson Holloway, who's been doing the newsletters with the input of everybody on the board. Evelyn, who has been you know, steadfast in making sure that we don't miss key issues and key initiatives and things that, you know, people need to know about. So your board members are listed here. This is always the agenda slide, which in the past 5 or 6 months has had, you know, people wearing different masks. So again, like I said, I had some fun with the graphics. Dia de los Muertos. Away we go. So COVID-19 updates we're going to cover tonight. Census 2020. We're going to cover voting in 2020, and then we're going to go straight to Jake to talk about the expansion of the quality of life task force, and jump right into development presentations, of which we have 3. Mr. Ben Torre will be presenting his 2 projects on Newark Ave, and I'm not sure if Paul Francisco is going to present or if it's going to be Connell Foley, but we'll see a presentation for 160 to 166 Brunswick. And then, as we've typically done, I'll show the calendar of virtual meeting updates, and we'll jump into an open forum. All right. COVID-19 updates, Tableau. This is, we've looked at this every month. We've looked at it every month because it's important to look at where we stand today, and, you know, relative to the number of cases in Jersey City specifically. So this is the City of Jersey City's dashboard for COVID-19 cases. You know, you can see where we were back in March and April, and how we have flattened the curve and kept the curve continually flat. You know, there are minor little spikes here in early October. But again, I want to encourage everyone to just keep doing what you're doing. You know, it's not great. It sucks, frankly. Virtual learning for our children can be challenging, to say the least. But, you know, maintaining social distancing, wearing face coverings when in public, and certainly on public transportation are critical aspects to continuing to combat this virus until a vaccine is available readily for the public. So, you know, you can see what a great job we've done here as a city. So thanks to everyone that continues to do that. Testing. So again, COVID-19 testing, we talked about this before, but they've split the testing up between the antibody test and the nasal swab. So currently at the public health building, public safety headquarters on Marin, you will get the nasal swab test, and they have since changed the access. So now it's off of 6th Street. You walk in along there. They open at 8 a.m. If you want to get tested, you want to get in and out of there quickly, I would recommend going at about 8:25 because there's a bit of a rush at 8, and then there's kind of no one. So this is a new lab that Jersey City has contracted with, and it is 100% true that 48 to 72 hours you get your results. It's closer to 30, but basically, you know, the previous lab's results were taking too long, so you can get results on average within 2 days. That's sort of what we're tracking these days. So I encourage everyone to get tested that wants to get tested. It's free and it's open to the public, and all you have to do is bring an ID. The census, Census 2020, you know, our numbers have been increasing, thankfully, which is wonderful. It ends October 31st. It has been once again extended to the end of this month. So please, there are, you know, a number of ways to fill out the census. You could do it online, you could do it by telephone, and you could do it by mail. And you have probably seen, you know, census workers walking around, and what they're doing is they're tasked with addresses that are of buildings that have not responded to the census, and many of those are, you know, vacant buildings. In some cases, they're just people that haven't done it. So that's an active effort that's ongoing. This, of course, for those of you that haven't joined us in the past, you know, this is critical, right? I mean, this is money for healthcare. This is money for education. This is money for infrastructure. It's really critical that we get counted. And, you know, currently, I think we're still tracking under 60% response, which is a difficult thing because, you know, there's no repercussions to it, right? I mean, anybody that lives in Jersey City needs to be counted so that as a city we can, you know, manage these important resources and get the right amount of money from the federal government to deal with that. Okay. Oh, sorry. I will just say before we jump into the quick voting bit, I tend to mute everyone on this. I didn't do that tonight. I want anyone to feel like you do when you come to Casa Colombo and we're in person. If you want to say something, please just jump in and interrupt or say something. It's not an interruption. It's a dialogue. You know, this Zoom format, unlike my children's classroom, when, you know, you have to mute everybody because you hear any number of conversations going on in the background. We're all adults and we want to talk to each other here. So please feel free to jump in at any moment if you have a question or anything like that. And at the end of this agenda, you know, we do have an open forum, but I want this to be as interactive as possible if anybody wants to jump in. Voting in 2020. So here's the big important thing on that. Number one, you should have all received a mail-in ballot. If you have not received a mail-in ballot, you need to request that tomorrow. There's no reason that you should not have received it. The reason I say that is while there is a modicum of in-person voting, there is in-person voting in each municipality, but it's a paper ballot. So if you don't have, you know, the mail-in ballot, and if you haven't registered to vote, do it. Tomorrow's the deadline. So October 13th is your register to vote deadline. Joe has put some things in the chat with links to that. I'm just showing you on the left here, our own board member, Jason Edens, as he voted in that box that you may have seen sitting out in front of City Hall, which is there 24/7. And if you get our newsletters, there's a link in there that you can actually follow along, you know, as your vote gets counted, as your signature gets accepted. It's pretty cool stuff. But this is the way to do it in 2020. Please don't wait too long. you know, I'm sure you've all been reading a little bit about provisional ballots and how they may be, you know, shall we say, challenged, not as readily accepted. You're better just to get it in, get it done and dusted, you know, in time. All right. Okay, so I think that's it for my upfront business. Oh, sorry, 1 minute, Jake. Before I do that, I just want to go out through the tabs that I have open to share with you. You know, again, there's no mystery to the way I get to these things, right? It is jcnj.org, and that brings you to the city website. And, you know, you can literally sort of scroll through this top bit and see the kind of, you know, primary bits of information that the city is putting out there. One of the things I want to highlight here is the Division of Recreation. But, you know, this is all here for you to see what's important. You know, the virtual calendar is here, and we'll go through the virtual city meetings toward the end of the agenda. But in that Department of Recreation, you know, you'll see that a lot of programs have been opened up. You'll see, you know, where you can click to register. You can see the robust schedule and where they're all happening, you know, from Enos Jones on the outskirts of the village to, you know, Cave and Point Fields, Bayside. You know, there's a lot going on. Things are opening back up. I started coaching kids soccer, which is a fun and exciting thing. But, you know, by all means, please, you know, refer to the city's website in order to understand what programs are available to you. And I'm going to stop talking for a minute there and stop sharing because without further ado, I would like to welcome Jake, Hudnut, and Wasim to talk about, you know, the expansion of the Mayor's Quality of Life Task Force.
Great.
Dive in, boys. The floor is yours. I'm going to mute.
Thank you so much, Eric. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jake Hudnut.
I can't hear you for some reason. It's just me.
Can anyone else hear me?
Yeah, I can hear him.
Yes, I can hear just fine, Jake as well.
Crisis averted. Okay. Hi, folks. I'm Jake Hudnut. I'm the Jersey City Municipal Prosecutor. Thank you so much for having me tonight to talk about some recent developments in quality of life enforcement. And also, I want to hear from you folks about any issues you'll need my office to look into. My work is community driven, so coming to neighborhood associations is very important to me. I have with me Wasim Own from the Resident Response Center. So him and I will work together to follow up on anything we don't have the answer to tonight. And I'll also be talking about how the Resident Response Center fits into the new structure. I'm just going to throw up a very, very brief, super brief, maybe 5-slide PowerPoint on the restructuring, and then I'll tell you why we did it, and then I'll take questions or comments. And here we go. Let me share my screen. Is that working?
Yes.
All right, and then I go to slideshow, play from beginning. Okay, so basically what we did, the administration proposed and the city council passed 7-2 was consolidating my office, the resident response center, and local code enforcement into one division. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Mayor's Quality of Life Task Force. We brought it back about 1.5 years ago. There's been a Quality of Life Task Force since the 90s under Mayor Cumber. This was the first time, though, it was chaired by a municipal prosecutor. And the reason that worked so well is because we focused on community input through engagement with neighborhood groups and with the Resident Response Center, meaning that we let the community point us to where we needed to go. We coordinated the responses. We brought all our enforcement offices to the same table. And in having it chaired by a municipal prosecutor, the assistant prosecutors in court had more context, and they knew why a problem was important. When I became the municipal prosecutor in July of 2018, I noticed that quite often a lot of the different city offices weren't necessarily communicating to each other about their most problematic issues. and I would see a landlord that owned many properties, not a small landlord by any stretch, but one that owned properties across the city. I'd see he would have a set of tickets in one courtroom, in another courtroom, and that context wasn't consolidated. And then when we get emails from residents, when we get emails from neighborhood associations, because is run by the prosecutor's office, when those tickets that come out of that, when we go after neighborhood blight or things of that nature, your messages and your information that you send to us stay with the file all the way to court. So I found that quite often my prosecutors were trying to have to convince judges why this was important. Now we know, we can say, look, judge, this neighborhood group reached out, this resident reached out, this is why this particular property is affecting the folks on the street. So more context. Just some numbers. In our first 9 months, the task force inspected 190 sites, 17 community meetings, and relocated 19 families to safer housing conditions. And we passed an ordinance that put that cost back on the offending landlord, so that is not paid for by tax dollars. And then we also led the investigation and enforcement of COVID-19 restrictions since March. These numbers will be about 3 weeks or 4 weeks old. But as of 4 weeks ago, we had responded to 118 reports of price gouging, 325 businesses violating curfew, and almost 1,400 reports of social distancing concerns in businesses, all the while still visiting 120 general quality of life issues throughout Jersey City in a coordinated fashion. We thought, though, we could do better, and the reason obviously the task force worked, but then we went a step farther last month because my office was doing constituent outreach, the RRC was doing constituent outreach, and in fact, most of our code offices also had at least one person doing constituent outreach. So particularly from a resident point of view, in terms of tax dollars being spent wisely, we're going to consolidate all that and make sure that stays with the Resident Response Center and get rid of any redundancy. We also uniquely have 7 code enforcement offices spread among 4 departments. That's unique for New Jersey. That's unique nationally. Most New Jersey municipalities, even the big ones, have 2 tops. We just have a lot, and I'll throw up a graphic in a minute so you understand who those 7 are, but we wanted to sort of chop that down even farther. And only one of them had overnight and weekend inspections. So we wanted to widen the scope. That was sanitation. So for example, commerce, which is a really big one, if you have a loud restaurant or a loud bar on your street, we wanted to expand their availability for residents. That's kind of the same slide, reducing overlap, minimizing cross-departmental enforcement, and just concentrate the enforcement and expand its availability. So this will just give you a sense of Jersey City code enforcement. I've put it into 2 buckets here. The red enforces state administrative code. So that's construction code, environmental health, fire prevention, and zoning. They enforce code, but state code that comes from the legislature. But locally, we have housing code enforcement, commerce, and sanitation, and they enforce ordinances that we pass at the local level. Habitability that we pass at the local level that goes farther than the uniform commercial code, which you would get from construction code. Commerce would be our largely, in a quality of life sense, it would be our hours for outdoor entertainment, our hours for noise levels, noise readings. And then sanitation, of course, is illegal dumping, trash out earlier, though I tend not to focus on that one. I tend to focus more on like a contractor that would maybe be doing illegal dumping, or out of state, out of town property owner that buys a piece of property and then doesn't maintain it. That'll touch on sanitation. So basically what we're doing is we're taking those 3 on the blue column and we're just making it a quality of life enforcement. It's going to be called the Office of Code Compliance, and the inspectors, no one's losing their job. Those inspectors are going to be cross-trained on each other's ordinances, and they are going to be known as quality of life inspectors. And And so you'll have those 4 offices still enforcing state administrative code, and then you'll have this Office of Code Compliance doing local ordinances. And at the end of the day, there will be a division of quality of life headed by the municipal prosecutor. You'll have 3 offices under it: the Office of the Municipal Prosecutor, where the assistant prosecutors are going into court and litigating summonses. The Resident Response Center, you're all familiar with their work. They're going to largely keep doing what they do. And then this new Office of Code Compliance with cross-trained inspectors on expanded hours available for evenings and weekends. And the council passed that. We are slowly rolling it out, especially on the code enforcement end. There's a lot to be learned. And we have to bring together 3 offices into one. So we're looking at a slow rollout between now and the beginning of January. I'll just say 2 things before I hear from you folks with either questions or things you need me to look into. One of the things I'm most proud of with the COVID enforcement was we led with education before enforcement. With our businesses, the summons book, well, really with anyone during COVID, but particularly with the businesses, because most of the restrictions came down on businesses, we kind of appreciated, the mayor, Director Shea, myself, appreciated that everyone was learning under a new normal. So in the beginning, when we would, like I'm talking very beginning, late March, when we would go to a food store and they were having trouble with capacity, I mean, it was just good old fashioned troubleshooting, right? Because we were even a little bit ahead of some of the state guidelines when we came out to keep Jersey City safe. And I was very proud that we led with conversation, we led with problem solving, and we issued less than 100 summonses related to COVID. It might even be closer to 50. And that's a very small number compared to other municipalities. Newark at one point had a COVID task force, they called it, and you can check their Twitter because they were very proud of it, that it was issuing hundreds of summonses an evening. I decided to go the other direction, and I had the mayor's buy-in and Director Shea's buy-in. I wanted to announce 0 summonses each day. Now, we were doing tons and tons of checks on businesses, but quite often they just needed to figure out how to solve their problems. Having an attendant at the door, keeping a track of capacity in the store, having lines marked out on the floor. These things are all normal now, but in March and April, everyone was just kind of figuring it out, and we didn't feel anything would be served by throwing a bunch of summonses at businesses or even folks that we engaged, although most of our work was directed at businesses. And so we've written that into the statute, the ordinance, I should say, for this new division, that it will be led by education before enforcement. And, you know, I think quite often municipal court has a reputation of being fee generation. I came from a defense attorney background. That was never my intention I kind of wanted to get rid of that culture. And I'm not in the business of tickets, I'm in the business of solving problems. So that'll sort of be the philosophy of this new division, because we really kind of honed it in on COVID enforcement. And lastly, I'll just say, you might have read that this new division will be under the director, under the Department of Public Safety, although I'll remain prosecutorial independence as a mayoral appointment. And that was a passion of mine, because that was something I brought to the table. Because I think while there's a lot of conversations right now about what police reform means, to me, police reform means community engagement. And I think a lot of times people mistake community policing to mean events, National Night Out, police officers jump roping and with children. It's actually much more than that. It's actually enforcement, being proactive and solving residents' problems, not being reactionary and responding to where there might be a crime. Obviously, the police department's going to keep doing all those things, but by sort of bringing this quality of life enforcement and bringing the Resident Response Center into the Department of Public Safety, it was sort of a way to reframe what it means to be in public safety and be very proactive, be driven by community engagement, and there will not be police officers in this division, but they're going to be one division over. I will also say that a lot of the success of the task force in the past year has been because we have 4 police officers assigned to it. Some of the worst offenders, we tackled some polluters in the southern end of the city at 1 Caven Point Avenue. And had we not had the ability to level criminal charges against those business owners, I don't think they would have just gotten the message necessarily with code summonses. So law enforcement has been a strong partner in the success of the task force. And so we're going to come into the Department of Public Safety, so we don't need to reach far for their help when we need it. And we're also going to move the needle a little bit on what it means to be in public safety. And so that's sort of what we're looking at. Any questions on that? And then maybe if there's anything specific on that, and then I'd be happy to hear if there's anything going on your streets and neighborhoods that you need Wasim and I to look into. That would be great. Joe, there's also a short link to my office that I'm sending, just jcnj.org prosecutor. We have a general email inbox I'm sending, and then I'll give you my email, of course. Both of those go to me, just the prosecutor one's a little easier to remember. But any questions about the structure?
That's great, Jake. We'll put these on our website. Apologies for my audio issues when you started talking. I apparently was the only one that couldn't hear you, and in my flusteredness, forgot to mute. Apologies.
Okay. Folks heard me though, right? Or do I need to do it over?
Oh no, I'm the only one. Everyone heard you just fine. I had to switch to my earbuds.
Somebody commented, it began with somebody said they couldn't hear me, but in any event, and then, oh, he said he could. DAM, okay, 159 said he could hear you. Okay, and then does RRC handle the C-Clicks Fix stuff? Yes, Jason, they do. That's the software that they use.
Yeah, you guys are awesome on that. I appreciate it.
Great.
My question, my comment, I've used the C-Click Fix app twice in the last month. One was for overgrown bushes on a walkway. Another one was for garbage pickup, and it was like magic. Things got addressed. And at first, I thought it was a coincidence, but then I realized it was actually because of the app. So just a lot of kudos to you guys for doing that. It's amazing.
Yeah, I agree, Irene. The couple times I've had to use it, it was immediate.
So that the gratitude there goes to Wasim on because it's his team at RRC that sort of dispatch, so to speak.
Thank you.
No problem. So what we do is we run annual reports, weekly reports to make sure, for example, you input a complaint, it will go to sanitation. Then we take a look how fast sanitation has responded to you. So if it's, let's say 2-3 hours have gone by and they haven't even acknowledged it, we call them up and let them know, hey, this was put in, please go take a look and send an inspector as soon as possible.
That's awesome. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions?
I have a question. I'm not sure if this is, I mean, it is a quality of life, but it's not like an emergency or anything. We've had issues, I mean, actually in the city, with buildings that are empty, where they leave the windows open and they basically just let it decay so that they can tear it down. And we've got some older buildings that, I mean, one of the oldest buildings in the village had to be torn down because, oops, it got ruined. You know, there's one on 4th Street that nobody's lived in for the last several years and the windows are open. So I assume they're doing the same thing. I don't know if that falls in your purview.
Robinson, that's a great point. I'm trying to figure out how to say this most diplomatically, but many people get with historic buildings. Well, quite often it happens with historic buildings. I don't know if the one on 4th Street is historic.
Old, but not probably.
They get denied permits to demolish it, and then they just sort of leave the windows open. And I want to catch somebody doing that and charge them with criminal mischief. So one, if you're familiar with anybody sitting on a historic property and you think they're doing that, I know buildings that are doing it, but we need to like build a case and watch them the whole time. It's kind of hard to prove that intent. But do you know the address on 4th Street? I mean, regardless of whether it's historic, I'll look into it, but do you know the address?
I mean, off the top of my head, I can't remember it. It's literally, I could look out the window and see it. But I know no one's lived there for a couple of years. So it's hard to say if anybody, you know, they may have said, oh, well, when we left 2 years ago, we forgot to close the windows.
It's the property, Jake, that's directly south of the Cancro lot, of the empty lot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, directly east of the Cancro lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the big empty lot. The school's on one side and this building's on the other.
All right, very good. I'll check it out.
I'll email you the address.
Yeah, you know how to get me. I will say the same time the mayor hired me in July 2018, he hired a new director of housing preservation, and she came from the tenants' rights group, the Waterfront Project. She has been very aggressive with vacant building registration. A year and a half later, 2 years later, I mean, it still consumes a lot of the city's time just because it hadn't been paid attention to for a while under prior administrations, and we're sort of turning that battleship around. I have found that one of the largest quality of life offenders across the city are out of town property owners that invest here and sit on property and don't do anything with it. And quite often that's why you kind of need that law enforcement presence, because sometimes it's a criminal bench warrant that scares them into showing up. And to me, you know, they're not part of our community in any way other than title, right? I'm not saying there are people that do buy here and beautify it, and they live in Brooklyn or they live elsewhere in New Jersey and they rent it out to people and it's part of the neighborhood. But when you just sit on something waiting for the market to do whatever, or you just haven't gotten around to it yet, and then you complain that crime happens on your property, well, of course, right? That happens a lot in these vacant homes. But you're also just de-beautifying our neighborhood. So we're pretty aggressive with them. So yeah, I'll look at that particular building, but across the board, we're getting pretty aggressive with people that come in, buy property and don't take care of it.
Hey, this is Evelyn. Like the Via Quente lot on Newark and 3rd is an example of a property that's been left to, you know, just rot. And
Okay.
if we could take a look at that.
I'll tell you all that I wrote that down and we'll follow up with you.
Thank you.
I mean, I hope you find this interesting, but not startling, but we had a very large factory on Monitor Street in Bergen Lafayette. It's been a problem for years and years and years, probably a decade. And tons and tons of violations, health, safety, fire, the works. And the owner lived in Brooklyn, which is even harder to execute those bench warrants. But we found out he had an attorney. He was doing a property sale elsewhere in Hudson County. So the redevelopment agency was like, here, call his lawyer. He had bench warranted for about 10 years on various violations for this property. And I called the lawyer, just lawyer to lawyer, and said, hey, your client has these summonses. I don't really care about the summonses. I just kind of want the property taken care of. And there was like stagnant water in the basement that was attracting mosquitoes and affecting the people on the street there and Monitor Street that had new homes around it. And the lawyer actually said to me, he goes, these are municipal summonses. He goes, my client's got more important things to worry about. Plus he lives in New York, never get them. He goes, in fact, he goes, we're in the middle of a lawsuit at the Hudson County Superior Court on a much more important issue. And so that's going to tie us up for the next few days. Well, he just told me where his client was going to be in the state of New Jersey. So the next morning when they showed up for court on a totally unrelated matter at the Superior Court, not my court, we had our quality of life officers ready to execute 10 years of bench warrants on him. And he posted bail on every single one of them by evening, so he didn't stay anywhere overnight. That might sound harsh, but 10 years of letting a property fall down and devalue a neighborhood and affect people's quality of life, I think warrants at least 4 hours in jail till you post a couple $1,000. So that's a little bit of a
Good job.
One, how to be a bad lawyer, because he told me where his client was going to be and basically told me to buzz off. To give you a sense of, you know, we're really in the business of troubleshooting here, and the trickier a problem, the more drawn I am to it.
Jake, do you think that if we had something equivalent to New York City's Local Law 11, that would, you know, give you another a little more firepower?
Robinson, I wish I was quick enough to Google local law 11.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It is local law 11 is it started when, you know, like a brick fell down and killed a kid. And so you have to maintain your building. And the city sends out inspectors. And if the city
No.
oh no, they don't.
Every 5 years, Jake, an owner must have an engineer sign off and say this building is safe. And there are legal ramifications if they don't do that. And most engineers don't want to have that liability. So they say you have to point, you have to do this, you have to do that. So it kind of forces landlords not to ever abandon their properties.
I'll check it out.
It's got a lot of meat to it. And of course, landlords hate it.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny. I was just speaking to the quality of life prosecutor for Dallas, and they have something similar sort of that allows them to go to the state court system with their property owner offenders. And I mean, I'm going to look into that, and if we can do it, we can do it. But one problem, New Jersey tends to be very like top heavy. Everything has to come from the state legislature. New York has much more freedom as a municipality as opposed to their state. But I'll certainly look into it. I wrote it down. And if we do it at the local level, certainly. But I have a feeling it's going to be a legislature thing, but then we can tell our legislators why we need it.
Right.
Hey, Jake, we got an empty lot on 3rd Street for the 10 years that I've owned here. And, I would say at least 3 times a year, we put in RRC complaints. It gets overgrown, trash is in front of the sidewalk, the tree pits. And over the course of those 10 years, the city has come. One time I know they cut the gate open to clean it out and take out some of the appliances that were left on the lot. So now the lot's just overgrown and nothing ever seems to happen. I get, notifications that they've issued summonses to the lot owner, but it just, it never changes. Is there anything that can be done to some, it's a vacant lot that's owned that just over that length of period of time, something greater than just issuing, one-off summonses can happen?
Right. Well,
change.
Before I answer that, more like 3,000 feet, but do you know the exact address? If not,
yeah, I think it's 376 3rd Street.
Okay, we will check it out. Peter's talking, right? I'm having trouble.
Yeah, it's Peter Farrell.
Right. So we will check that specific one out. I will say we've been getting better with the clean and lean, right? So I don't want you to think that when the city comes and cleans it up, that's just your tax dollars doing that. We actually have been getting really aggressive putting those liens through the city council, so that's attached to the property. We do have legislation pending. It was actually Michael Youn was authoring it, so I think it's fallen off the radar, but I know it'll come back up again soon. We were going to be escalating the fees on vacant lots because I think currently it's a flat rate. I shouldn't say flat rate, but the same each year. I think we were going to graduate it. So I will follow up on that. COVID sort of derailed that conversation, and obviously Councilman Youn passed, unfortunately. But I will follow up on that. And I thought I had a third point with the vacant lots, but yeah, we definitely lean those costs. And like I said, I believe we should be graduating the fee. So we'll continue working on that. And then I will pull up the information on that lot specifically and see if I can find out what happened with those summonses. And if we need to reissue and do better, we will.
I have a question also. So regarding the inspections, we had a few experiences where developers, not to mention names, Peter Mako, have been approved for one thing and have built completely something different, higher, different exterior finish, going from stone to ephes, which is basically styrofoam. Is there a way to step up those inspections? And can you talk a little more in detail on how that happens, when it happens, and how something like that could have fallen through the cracks on Newark Avenue, very prominent building?
Yeah, that predates me a little bit, but I'm familiar. That's when I was Harsimus Cove president, I believe, around that time. So we were aware of it too, and might have joined up with your rightful objections. That, well, I don't want to sound like I'm punting, but let me say that that is a different tribunal that goes to the Construction Board of Appeals. I will say though that I think one of the goals in moving all this other code enforcement under the municipal prosecutor and then within the Department of Public Safety is to sort of add some integrity to it. So things that would still be a construction code issue, but if I had been the prosecutor, then there was other things I could have maybe charged them with separate aside from the Construction Board of Appeals. I think we've been getting better results with the municipal involved in code enforcement on the front end, on these quality of life issues on the front end, because I think quite often, right, like Jersey City is a big, small city, right? And I think like you can just argue with a code inspector or call their supervisor. You might, or for me, I truly think a lot of these tickets were sort of disappearing once they got to municipal court because there was none of that context I talked about. I think we're getting better results. I treat everyone the same. So whether you're Mako or you're a landlord that's never stepped foot in Jersey City, but you own here, it doesn't make a difference. So I wasn't around for that instance, but if you see anything like that happening again, please let me know there or anywhere else, because I'm not afraid to take on anyone. So.
Jake, this is Eric. If I could just piggybacking on that particular property from a different perspective, which I think does very clearly fall under, code, construction code enforcement. Yes, there were egregious, violations in terms of what was built versus what was approved. But for me, as an architect, the more sort of nefarious, if you will, issue with that particular building, 245 and 247 Newark Avenue, is the technique, right? The construction detailing. And I took some photos as an example of the facade as it was going up. And there were 3 different kinds of sheathing and, massive joints of, sealant to try to fill the gaps. I noted that none of the window flashing had been installed before the windows went in. Like, there were some egregious, errors in that particular construction. And, you sort of didn't need to even be an architect to know that just looking at what this was before it got, clad, was going to be a nightmare for the people that live in there. Like, I fear for them this winter. It's going to leak like a sieve. And then on top of it, after we had gotten them to, sort of after we won the case where they had to remove the ephes, they never did remove the ephes. They simply applied the metal panels on top, which is potentially a really horrific combustible facade scenario that has, shown itself to be an ugly monster in Grenfell Towers in London. But again, not to go too far into this, to me, I have grave concerns every time I pass that building because I know what's underneath. And I'm wondering, back then when I was taking photos and sending them to Peter himself, and he was getting his consultants to respond saying, it's fine, this is totally fine, which I knew it wasn't, are there any ways to sort of deal with that? I mean, I understand some of that falls in the very gray area of means and methods, and you can't really tell someone how to build their building, right? But if you're seeing things that sort of egregiously incorrect or could result in, ultimately fire concerns, I just don't know where that goes, Jake, to be honest with you.
Sure. I think, so I talked about law enforcement being a strong partner in a lot of these issues. One, there is a criminal charge. I'm trying to think of the name of it, but I know I keep it in my back pocket. It's a 3rd degree, so it goes to the county. So I wouldn't prosecute it, but my team would write it. We do have that, right? Again, so this, I wasn't around back then. So there are criminal statutes. I don't see them used a lot. I was practicing at the county, but they're there. But fire safety, kind of another really strong partner, because that's an easy argument to win, right? When there's a fire.
Yeah, agreed.
Things. And whereas I feel like people push back on uniform construction code, and maybe like you alluded to, get enough opinions to drown each other out, but no one really argues with fire code. But please, if there's a lot of construction downtown right now, any concerns, please let me know, because I'll work with you to address them. Somebody wrote Eric Madston asked about package thieves in the chat. Yeah, all package theft is either, so just by way of background, the difference between me and the county prosecutor can be boiled down to the following. You've all heard of misdemeanors and felonies. New Jersey likes to do everything different, so we don't use those words, but basically the county prosecutor handles felonies, I handle misdemeanors and code, and then traffic law. Yes, most package thefts do come to me, even if they're a felony, because the county prosecutor can downgrade them, which they often do, and we're very aggressive with them. My prosecutors cannot further downgrade or dismiss a package theft case without my approval. And because one, it's annoying for people, but two, quite often these folks have rather startling criminal histories, and I don't think any of us want them on our porches or in the vestibules of our buildings. So we're very aggressive with package thefts. If you do know of a repeated one, please reach out to me. I would bring in, it's not necessarily something the quality of life police officers would investigate, but I can certainly put it on the East District's radar, either patrol or their detectives, because it is important to me. So yes, we do prosecute those aggressively, and if you need it investigated, please reach out to me.
Thank you, Jake. Can I just say to everybody that's on here, because we do have some development presentations I'd like to get to, you've heard the discussions. If there are properties that you're specifically concerned with, can you send it please to either myself, directly to Jake, or send it to the info@jcvillage.org email. And we'll make sure that that information gets funneled there. Thanks again, Jake. He just put his emails into the chat. So please, if there are properties you're concerned about or properties that fall under the categories that we've been discussing, kindly do send that to us. Jake, I want to thank you for your time. This has been really informative. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jake.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Jake.
Feel free to stay on if you want to see some building presentations.
I'll listen.
Excellent. All right.
You should.
Thanks, everyone. I'm going to jump back to the quick share screen just to show you where we are in the agenda. We've now seen an excellent presentation and spent some time with Jake, which I think has been wonderful. Okay, development presentations. Let's jump right in. 306 and 325 Newark Avenue are BGT Enterprise properties, and then 160 to 166 Brunswick Street. Without further ado, I would like to invite Ben Torre. I assume, Ben, you're going to speak to this. Again, these are just my Halloween graphics. No Grim Reaper suggestions here, my friend. But I will stop sharing so you can share your screen if you would like, and by all means, take it away.
Hi, everyone. This is Ben Torre. It's great to be back at the Village Neighborhood Association. And just allow me to figure out how to share my screen. I've seen that done before. I've just never done it. So this is Microsoft PowerPoint. There we go.
So in the Zoom itself, Ben, you should be able to scroll your mouse around the middle of the bottom and see a green share screen button.
Right, it says I got to go to security and privacy on my computer. Sorry about that, guys.
All right. if you have issues, I have the materials that you had sent if you want.
You know, if you don't mind, yeah, if you don't mind,
I don't mind at all.
It might take me a while. I had prepared a PowerPoint slide, but we could just do it the other way.
So let me ask you this. You just tell me what you would like me to show. I have the 2 renderings of the 325 lot, and then I have the 2 sets of drawings.
All right, so let's start with 325. And because that rendering is actually still valid. And basically, just for some context, this property is on the corner of Newark Avenue and 4th Street. It is across, almost across, I should say, PS5. And what's there right now is the old Delta gas station that's now been painted in a very ugly green and red and some other hideous colors. And basically what we're proposing is to turn that into a 5-story building, 16 apartments, including commercial space. The units will range from 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. The rendering you're looking at actually is behind, as my background is the property, but I'm sure Eric can pull it up as well.
Yeah, what I did want to show, Ben, is this is the slide we looked at last week where I flipped the orientation in the architectural drawing to match. So you can see the property that is at Binny's Liquors is here. And then the property that Ben will be talking about is catty corner from that here on Newark.
Perfect.
Go stop and I'll pull up the drawing set for that one.
Yeah, and basically what's being proposed is a very modern design. Like I said, the apartments will range from 1 bedrooms to 2 bedrooms, and surprisingly, it's one of the first projects that I don't have to ask for a variance for. It's good. It feels different.
I've got the setup here, Ben. You want me to pull up the rendering?
If you don't mind, yeah.
I don't. So I have 2, and they appeared to be of the same property.
They are.
Yep. Okay. So these are both the 325, correct? Because it has the straight glazing at the corner. Yep. All right.
Correct.
You lead, I will follow.
Perfect. So that is basically the that site. I don't have a lot of comments about it. I just want to quickly go over the other site as well, which is kind of a sister project. It's a smaller site, and then really open it up for Q&A and to address any concerns or questions. So if we could go to the other site.
Why don't we do this, Ben? If you don't mind, I've got something sort of fun, halfway fancy here that I'd like to just share. So this is a Bluebeam view, which is a tool for looking at PDFs. And I have both presentations here, both decks here.
Okay.
They're split screen, and they are set to track each other. So in other words, as we look at the site that is the 326 site here on the right, and then the Binny's Liquor site here on the left, I can flip through them, and you can see the 2 plans side by side. One of the things, Ben, mentioned to you that we had done a little sort of preview of what we were going to see. Based on the small size of the site at 306, the egress stairs, occupy the exterior of the building. And on the ground floor, one of the things that we sort of really appreciated and thought was interesting is, at least according to the drawings, the glazing is flying by, so you don't see a big solid stair that touches onto the sidewalk, but it still maintains that glassy appearance on the ground floor. And then what we did want to get to was these are the sort of colored elevations, Ben.
Yeah, and if we could focus on the left one, because there now has been basically a suggestion by folks in one of the neighbors, I should say. So we have this on Binny's Liquor. So if you where the staircases are. If you scroll down, Eric, on the same front. So what we're actually proposing on that side right now is actually a mural that would basically go the entire wall, and we will obviously work with the VNA to come up with the mural. What I personally love are stuff by Ruben415. You could follow him on Instagram. It's very modern exteriors that he likes to do. But like I said, it's just, our plans are going to read a mural on that site, but it will be chosen at a future date with help of the VNA.
Got it. So you would then stop the glazing, I believe it's about here, and then we would have this nice long expanse of solid that you could have as a canvas for a mural.
Exactly. So the commercial space glazing, just to be clear, Eric, will remain. It's just the facade above that would go all the way to the top of the building.
Yep, got it.
And that property also is going to, look, we're using the same architect. We wanted similar looking buildings, but not too similar. So we felt that the mural would be a good addition to change it up a little bit. The facade that will be used at 325 will be more of a modern, I think, it's sort of a stone cast concrete that gets shaped into those sizes. This site we are considering to do brick because I think it will change it up a little bit and still keep it modern because of the glazing that already exists at the site.
At 306, Ben?
At 306, correct.
Got it. So that's the one on the left here. Yep, got it. If you don't mind, Ben, because we're getting some questions in the chat just about generally what's here. So I can just do this very quickly since these are synced together. You're currently looking at again the zoning sheets confirm no variants are being sought. This is your kind of roof level site plan. You can see the shape of the buildings. Going then to the ground floor plan, which is at the top here for each of these buildings. You'll notice that there's a sizable commercial space here at Binny's Liquor, the bike room, small residential lobby. If I go over to the 326 property, a larger residential lobby with a package room and a sizable retail space at grade there. And then the unit mix, for anyone that is interested in that, you can sort of see the way the units are laid out here in the left in 306. There's a sort of very nice closer unit here on the point of the building that occurs in both cases. And here on the right, you can see because of the size of the lot, the egress stairs are able to be buried within the building. You can see the undulation of the glass here. That's the general overview for anybody that was asking about parking or anything that was to be included. You can see it's a commercial space at grade.
Thanks for that, Eric.
Is that fair, Ben?
I couldn't have done it better.
I figured I would just handle those questions while they were being asked. Is there anything else you wanted to say about these, Ben?
No, not really. If there are questions, we would love to answer any, but they're pretty straightforward projects.
Great. So I would love to just open this up to everybody. I'm going to zip my mouth for a minute to allow anyone else to speak that would like to speak. Take it away.
Are these being built at the same time, or is one being built and then the other?
The earliest any of them could get built would start in 2 years, actually. And no, likelihood of them being built at the same time is very slim. There are different plans, there are different tenants. I'm working with the current owners of the property at these for these approvals. So the likelihood of, and there's an environmental concern on one of them that used to be the old Delta gas station that will take a long time for it to actually get cleaned up. So it'll take a while. So
will that be a full remediation site, Ben?
It's been already been remediated for the past year and a half, but they are not there yet. So there's still multiple testing that needs to happen. But
Takes time, right?
It takes time. It's going in the right direction, but not there yet. Oh, I'm reading the.
What's in the chat here?
Why not a JC artist for the mural? Great comment. That's why we'll open it up to VNA to decide who the artist should be when the time is right.
Got it. If I could just jump in real quick here. So Ben, there is one issue that I want to just talk about with you that we've had some concerns on other sites here in the village, and that's relative to again, this is a little bit of a sticky issue because it does deal with means and methods, but we have had some significant quality of life issues with projects recently in the village that have used driven as opposed to screwed piles. And I wanted to ask if you had any plans on that. And I also wanted to ask if you were aware of a micro pile product by a company called Stelcor that has been pricing out cheaper than driven piles here in downtown Jersey City. That our big concern is, of course, everybody's home, we can't get away from it, and ka-chunk, 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 the environmental aspect, the noise aspect causes great concern, and village residents are very much aware and acutely interested in foundation setting techniques. And I'm wondering if you have made a decision on that, or if you're open to discussions on that.
Yeah, so we have built in the village for the past 7 years, and we've only used helical piles. Actually, we have used Stelcor on 2 of them. The last project we used that on was 367 3rd Street. Is it cheaper than regular? No, Eric, it's absolutely not cheaper. That I promise you.
Check your numbers recently, man. I've talked to 2 big developers in downtown Jersey City, and they both told me they're pricing out cheaper.
I guess it's going to come down to at what depth they can actually lock up. So most of the village really needs to get locked up at 70, 80 feet deep. And basically some parts of the village go down to only 40 feet deep. So depending on where they get the strength, in theory, it could be cheaper. We haven't had that luxury so far. But look, we've used it for different reasons. Obviously, because most of the houses in the village are not built on piles, and most of them are not brownstones, they are older frame houses, there is actually a significant liability concern on our side when we go to pound. And there are unfortunately many examples of buildings in Jersey City that have collapsed on neighboring sites when there was massive piles. So we tend to actually go that route as just, we've actually never used regular pound piles. It's just never happened.
That's great. I mean, I know there's a lot of people on this call that are glad to hear that, Ben. I just wanted to just bring that up as an open point discussion. I do appreciate, that's been your MO in building. It hasn't been everyone's, unfortunately. We've endured some projects recently that have just pounded away. And like you said, people with historic foundations, are really concerned. We recently had a conversation with the property that was next to PS5, and tried to sort of implore them, like, you don't want to be the one to destroy the foundations or the, physical integrity of the building that our children go to school in. And I think we made some headway there, but we certainly have some strong backing for our case there. Does anybody else have any questions or comments about the designs, or questions for Ben?
We put them in the chat.
Yeah,
you got some in the chat?
Yep.
Alley behind 325.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that's a good question. Ben, we talked about this just sort of in a board meeting earlier. I'm sure you know it well. If you look on the right side of the screen here where I'm sharing, this is the 326 property. These are the adjacent buildings, and there's about a 3'8" setback, if you will, or offset of the building properties what can we do here? You know, we would obviously not want this to be, you know, a kind of creepy, nefarious activity alley that close to White Eagle Hall, or, you know, this seems like a tough little thing. Are you, you know?
Yeah, Eric, they only exist
Yep.
because there are property line windows at the adjacent lot. We actually don't have, we're not even showing windows facing that lot. So those,
Right.
that alley
No, I know
only
it.
exists because of the windows facing the property.
So I guess my question is, you know, how do we deal with the condition at grade?
You know, one idea would be to put gates on either side. So the alleyway would exist, but there would be a gate that would be obviously at the sidewalk level, and you would need a special fob to enter it so that it doesn't become obviously just a place for people to go hang out.
I had a question about, I guess the garbage, the commercial garbage and the residential. How will that be taken care of, and what side of the building will that come out of?
So we are showing a garbage room basically on our, give me 1 second. There's a trash room basically that's being shown on behind our staircase. And just like the other buildings that we have, garbage will be taken out by basically a super on the garbage nights.
That includes the commercial?
Well, depends on what the commercial use is, but yes, they'll have access to the commercial. If it ends up being essentially a use that requires them to have a commercial garbage removal service, they would have to have their own, they would have to arrange it basically at a future date. That's a Jersey City code. It's not really up to us to actually enforce it.
I mean, like which side of the street will the commercial garbage come out of? So it's coming out of, what is that right there in the upper left? Is that Newark?
Which property, Evelyn?
That would be on, I think on either side it's going to come out on 4th.
There was a question in the chat about parking. Will either of these properties include parking on site?
None of them are going to have parking on sites. No, the sites are corner properties on very busy corners. There's actually 6 corners that come together in that little area, and you really can't have curb cuts that close to obviously the intersections.
Hey, Ben, it's Peter Farrell. How are you?
Hey, Peter.
Hey.
Great to hear your voice.
Hey, good to see you. One was, are we going to rename those corners now the Ben Touret intersection, since you have 3 of the 5 or 6 corners that you are involved in?
Okay.
But more seriously,
Let's move
is
on.
there any update on what's happening with the galleon that you can share with the community? Is there any timeline for that?
Yeah, we basically were finalizing our construction drawings until, and then COVID hit. So we were in court up until more or less, I want to say October of 2019. At that point, basically in the beginning of the year, we started working on our construction drawings, and more or less we finalized them until, unfortunately, COVID hit, and those plans are now on hold for the foreseeable future, Peter.
All right, appreciate the update.
And look, it's a financial, there's not a bank right now that's financing any sort of activity in new construction, urban market, period. That is where the market is today. There is something in the text actually that says, what's Ben's plan for all the abandoned property his organization owns on First Street? We don't, so I would love to, yeah, I would love to know what the reference to First Street is. We don't own anything on First Street.
I imagine that's further back. All right.
Three years ago, we bought a property called at 387 First, and we sold it a year after. And we haven't owned anything on First Street for the past 2 years.
Can I ask a question? It's come up in the chat here. I do want to just ask this. So this is, I know I said I would not give my opinion until we've heard some other questions. But here goes, Ben. I know you've been waiting for it. Listen, I want to talk about the designs of these two buildings. I want to say first and foremost that I applaud the design of the building. I think it's interesting. I applaud, trying to do something unique, like even go so far as to say push the envelope of designs. It's not brick and metal panel box that we've been seeing as the new ubiquitous design in the village and elsewhere in downtown Jersey for that matter. But I have to ask the question, and I'm going to just come out and say it. I understand what the motivations behind such similar designs would be. I imagine there's great economies in scale in the fiber cement products and the insulated glass units. I guess my only question, what gives me pause, Ben, to be perfectly honest, is like until you look at the side elevation, right, where you see that one building has the glazing going straight and the other one, it steps in and out on the facade. I mean, these are ostensibly identical buildings. And my concern is just the feeling that might have as in my mind, potentially oppressive. Like, I feel like, again, as an architect, like what a great opportunity for these buildings to be referential or do a little like Fred and Ginger dance across the street kind of thing, as opposed to being, basically, if you're driving in your car, you're going to think they're exactly the same building. I'm wondering if there's anything you can do to still maintain your pro forma with materials you're looking to buy and stuff like that. Is it, changing colors or a tint in the glass? I really worry about the identical nature of these designs and wondered if you wouldn't mind just addressing that.
No, look, I hear you. And I think for 306, we are actually changing up the material to all brick. And obviously with the addition of the mural, it will look different. The corners will look the same because unfortunately they're actually the same angle. And we had two choices: either put a balcony in the corner, which I think I don't like that look. I know a building that actually is being finished right now on 5th and Newark Avenue. Very interesting building. Has balconies on the corner, and I didn't feel that was right. Actually, the design team suggested that, frankly, but we can't do much with the corner. Can we do something on the materials? Absolutely. I think if 306 was all brick, and maybe it's not the feel of this floor to ceiling, it's slightly more brick, and still can have the dance on the mirrors, right? The mullions can still have that dance going on. And then if you add the element of obviously the mural on 4th, I think it could look different. But the corners will look the same unless we were to introduce, like I said, a balcony.
No, understood. And just hearing you talk about material change from the fiber C to brick, that alone, I think, would start to set these two buildings apart. Here's $1 million question, Ben. When you're done making those changes, you will please come show them to us, right?
Yeah, no. So once the rendering for 306 is done, it will be definitely shown to you guys. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. All right, I'll stop talking. If anybody else wants to make another comment, I know we're running a little late, and I do want to quickly get to the 160 to 166 project so that everyone can understand what's happening there. By all means, we have an open dialogue with Mr. Torre, so if you have other questions or something you thought of, please just shoot us a note, info@jcvillage.org, email me directly, and we'll make sure that we communicate with Ben and try to get those answers for you.
And I just posted my email as well on the chat, so you guys could also email me directly.
I see that. Excellent. All right, listen, Ben, thanks for the time. Thanks for the presentation. I really appreciate it. It's good looking backdrop.
Sorry
I look forward to seeing what happens.
Sorry about the difficulties. I had a nice
No, it's all
PowerPoint
good.
slide. I should have sent it to you.
No, totally fine, bud. If there is anything you wanted to share that we didn't look at tonight, feel free to send it, and we can put it out.
Thank you.
All right, excellent. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so again, sorry, we're running a little late. I still have to cook dinner. Holy mackerel, that's all right. It's almost ready. Where am I? Okay, here we go. So we had looked at 306, 325, 160 to 166 Brunswick Street. Thomas, I imagine, are you representing that property?
Yes, I am. Tom Lane from
How you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm well. Chuck said you might jump on. Do you want me to put up the deck that we received from planning on this?
You
Or how do you want
can,
to do this?
however, my architect, Russ Bodner, is here, so he
Oh,
might.
even better. Oh, there he is. Hey, Russ.
Yep. So, for now, while I'm just sort of walking through it, I'm sure people would rather look at the project than my face, so if you wouldn't mind throwing that up, I'd appreciate it.
Russell, by all means, if you want to share screen and take it away, you may do so.
Yeah, this, here's the proposed rendering. Can you see that? Can you see that screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's the proposed rendering.
Oh, man.
We're proposing that, and we were, originally, this was already approved as, this was the approved rendering on the building. So we went a little way from modern to something a little bit more traditional in terms of the fact that we're like closer to the historic zone, and change that up. So,
I'm thrilled you went away from the dark palette. That's just me.
and the dark palette was also a lot. You know, we took out what I had originally drawn.
Can I just high level real quick, just preface this project for the community? So you know, Russell and Thomas are here to show us this property by no fault of Paul Francisco, who now owns this property. He was sold a property that had a design and had approval. Okay, so as the village community, the last time we saw this property was back in 2016. When life was a heck of a lot different, and it was Gotham West who had presented this project to us, and they owned. Thank you, Ben. We really appreciate your time tonight. Ben was jumping in the chat to say goodbye. Who owned the corner where Madame Claude's used to be, and then this property, right? It jumped across the alley. That's the last thing that we had seen. It was under the R1, which is important to note at that time. It was requesting multiple variances. You know, we were pushing back on the additional story, which we understood the next time we saw it, it was going to be dropped, that story. And now fast forward to 2020, and we haven't seen what happened. We've never seen this detached, if you will, from that original Gotham West proposal that included the building that is topped out now and is ready for, you know, facade finishings to go up. So that is this property. You're looking at the corner of 5th Street. Behind that,
Sound like Ralph Trout with a computer move.
Hey, Eric, I don't know if it's just me, but you sound like the McDonald's drive-through order taker. Like I can
something happened.
You cut out there for a bit.
Oh, I did?
Yes.
Yeah, big
maybe
time.
We heard every fifth syllable that I caught sounded brilliant.
That's terrible. That's terrible. Hang on, I'm going to hang up and try these guys again.
I'll have a Big Mac.
Pull up to the first window, please.
Better?
Yeah, we hear you now. Better.
Much better.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so what I was saying is that there were a number of variances approved for this project. this design team is looking to go back in front of the zoning board. They are this time around actually improving on those variances. So one of them is the height of appurtenances, which are bulkheads. And when we first saw this project, it had an elevator that went to the roof, and it must have been of a traction type that had a giant machine room bulkhead on top of that elevator, so an additional 10 to 15 feet roughly. That is no longer the case. So Russ, I'm assuming you went to machine roomless.
Yes, we went to a machine roomless elevator, so we went that direction.
Great. So that big old thing comes down. That's one of the variances. And then I believe there's actually a reduction in the variance request relative to the setbacks. Can you guys just clarify?
Yeah, you know what it was? There was like, I think it was a problem in the original drawings. They had it in there for a variance, even though it wasn't correct. So it's a little strange. So we still have the 16 units. And we also do have, but we did change the interior layouts in terms of what we're doing at the interior.
Eric, most importantly, this was originally a zoning board application that was seeking both height, use variances. Under the new R5, those wouldn't be required. This would normally be a planning board application if we were going in for a new application. Really, we've just brought the project into conformity. And because we have a new developer and a new architect, we're looking at a different design. And really those changes are, they're facade related, they're interior related. The original variances that would have been bulk that were approved under the prior approval, they haven't changed. The amount of units hasn't changed. The height of the building as measured from grade hasn't changed. This is really, it was borderline administrative amendment in planning's eyes. So really we're just back here to present the new design and the new developer's vision for this project.
I do appreciate that. So just so everyone's aware, this team was sort of blissfully unaware that we hadn't seen any of this. So we brought this to a head, and they agreed to carry the zoning board meeting from last week to, I believe, the 22nd, so that we could get them on the agenda for tonight, and you could see the building and have an opportunity to make any comments, relative to aesthetics or design or anything that you might see that you'd like to see done differently. I won't speak to it in that regard. I'll leave that up to the rest of the community. So by all means, let me know. I see a question here in the chat. Are those Juliet balconies? So can you open there's no projection, right? It's just
there's no projection. It's just a door.
Yeah. With
a railing.
Could open it and let your Rapunzel hair down, I guess, from the top. Yeah.
Hey, Eric, where is this building located?
This is across from the Burke Brothers garage, the yellow building.
5th and Brunswick.
Yeah.
Oh, down the street from me.
Yeah.
Got
it. Russell, can you pull up do you have a set of plans? You could just flip.
Yes,
I'm getting some questions about parking. I wanted just people to see that.
While he's doing that, I will just say that the parking hasn't changed from the prior approval. There are 9 parking spaces. They are actually exterior to the building. That's already approved. We're not proposing any changes to that, but I'll let Russ walk through how that parking works out.
Yeah, so there's that shared alleyway adjacent to the other building that's going up right now. And they had 9 parking spaces originally there. And we're going back with the 9 parking spaces, but it's an open garage. We're trying to we block it as much as we can from, when if you're walking down the street. But you still will have an open garage there from.
Can you? So Paul and I had a spirited discussion about this. Can you? I mean, to me it seemed like a design problem, right? Like the open garages on the gravel alley to me seemed like a safety concern and not the most pleasant of experiences. Now, again, Paul and I had a spirited discussion on this. He was concerned about flood insurance. And my question is, isn't this more of a design problem to solve? Can you not, find a door that has permeable base or something like this, that it's not enclosing, it allows water to flow out? I guess just as an architect, Russell, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
We could take a look into that because we do have 18-foot deep spaces. I need a little bit more just to put like a type of garage door on each of these, but
Oh,
So
so
we kinda-
you're at a 9 by 18, which for everyone on this call is a standard parking space. You can go as low as like 8.6, but the 18 is the length you need.
Yeah, the 18 is where we're at. So,
Got it.
and we're kind of sharing that alleyway. So the backup on the person on the other side, has to come almost into our space as well a little bit, because you can see the building above has that line above. So I'd only be able to set that door in about 18.6. I couldn't really go any further than that. So I just started encroaching on that backup from the other people, which is only about 22 feet. It's not great. It's a little tight.
So you're a resident, you drive down the gravel alley, you park in your parking space, you come out and you come to the sidewalk level on Brunswick and enter, or you have the ability to sneak through the garbage room into the vestibule?
You can sneak through the garbage room in the vestibule because they have the handicap parking aisle there. It originally wasn't done like that. I fixed that a little bit on the original, on the other plans. I did fix that because they did have something here, but as you can see here, there was no way to get from here to the lobby. And I was like, that's kind of silly. You got to walk all the way around. I mean, you got to go all the way around. Well, if you're here, you got to go all the way around into here.
Yep.
And I was like, didn't make any sense. So I figured I could make my garbage room there, make everything gas there. I could hide the gas meters. I could put everything here behind the wall, and I could get, a person can bring the garbage out this way, and then there's a better way to store the garbage before they bring it out. I just reworked some of this. I didn't like the way it was flowing. So I stayed within the envelope we had, but I reworked that as well as I reworked the apartments to make them a little bit nicer, a little bit more usable, going from taking the one bedrooms like from 900 square feet down to 600, almost 700 square feet, and then making two bedrooms that are like 1,100, 1,200 square feet on the upper levels. If we went to the upper level.
And you added that 3-bedroom, right? That we were just looking at on the ground
floor? Yeah, we had
floor?
that 3-bedroom because we thought that was nice. And we had enough room for it. It just, the other person was using up way too much space for, I don't know what they were doing. But it was easier for me to fix it and try to make it nicer.
I think Irene calls those Peloton sales. They're larger so you can fit the bike.
Yeah, I just felt like we could, we actually got 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms on that first floor by just rearranging it a little bit. The trash room was in the middle of the building. This utility room was quite large, and the storage room was in here. I was like, well, I don't need all this space, and I don't need the bikes weren't taking up the right amount of room anyhow. So I rearranged everything on this plan to make it. And I compacted the stair in because the stair was on the outside of the facade, and I moved it in a little bit so I could make it on the upper levels, a usable space for another bedroom. As you can see over here, made that a bedroom. So that made that a lot nicer. So it's just juggling the facade a little bit and the units. We ended up with, before there was 12 1-bedrooms and 12 1-bedrooms and 4 2-bedrooms. And now we have 9 1-bedrooms. Actually, we have 9 2-bedrooms, 6 1-bedrooms, and 1 3-bedroom. And the square footage is all nice. We have 1,100 square foot to 1,260 on the 2-bedrooms, and the 1-bedrooms are 681 and 821. So, and the 3-bedroom is quite large at 1,700 and I think it's 1,764 square feet. We go back down to that one. It's quite a large, 1,762 square feet. So it's a pretty large 3-bedroom there.
Russell, staying on the ground floor here, can I just ask you again on the parking issue? So in the alley itself, and I don't know, I'd have to look this up. Is there a one-way? Is it a one-way condition, or can you do
I think it's a 2-way condition because it doesn't say it's one.
So just a couple of questions to follow up on that. So do you know how wide that alley is? Is that the 21 inches?
That's the 21
feet that you show there?
Yeah, that's the 21 feet. But when you come to the entrance, you're only about 18 feet. Like as if you come into a garage door area, because you can see here the alleyway goes from here to here.
Yes.
Actually, the alleyway goes to here, but it goes into my building about 3 feet.
Oh, understood. So yeah. Oh, I get it.
Yeah, that's what they got me.
There. That's your line of the building above.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So 18 feet. So that's a tight 2-way, but it is 2-way. So just to follow on that, I'm coming out of my parking space. Let's say I'm in parking space 3. I'm backing into the alley and I'm coming out onto the sidewalk. What am I looking at there? Like there's several of these. The reason I'm asking, Russ, is not to trap you into something here. I just want to tell you very transparently where I'm going, and I think you sort of already can figure that out. Pedestrians on the sidewalk, do we see any sort of a convex mirror or something that helps
We can
the
add something.
drivers
Yeah.
see pedestrians and vice versa, rather than, you poke your nose out until somebody yells or doesn't,
Well, I put the planter bed a little bit far out here too, so I could get like a bed thing, so I could keep people from a little bit of my building. I didn't design the other one, so I was like, I wanted to keep people out of, like keep them on this side of the sidewalk and at least get another 3 feet out there.
Yep.
But,
And, I was concerned about potentially darkness in these parking spaces. Paul mentioned 24-hour lighting inside open garages.
we'll have to do low-level lighting. I can't do anything crazy.
Right, of course. I don't know. I would just ask you to just think on this, any opportunity for, a motion sensor light or something that can help mitigate the parking pedestrian interplay here, or the, the safety of open garages interplay here. So just would ask you to think about it.
Yeah, correct. That's no problem. We'll come look at that again, because the lighting we can have one with just a low-level lighting, and maybe it comes on a little bit more if somebody's in there. So this way there is some lighting always, but.
Is there a possibility, with this alleyway, I see it goes from Brunswick to Monmouth. And Eric, you were talking about it being a one-way. Could it be is there a possibility it could be a one-way where you enter from Brunswick and you exit on Monmouth? I mean, I don't know. It's just, that would help a lot, right?
That's a good question, Louis. I think that's more of a, kind of city question. Let us look into that a little bit more, Russ and Thomas. I don't know. I mean, it's funny. It's just like a gravel road at the moment, right?
Yeah. The problem is I don't know if that's a public right of way. I think that might be shared property all the way.
That's what
Okay.
You have to have every single property owner along the way agree to it, which is something that the city and planning could help coordinate, but it wouldn't be under one single action by the city, I don't believe.
Okay.
Is Mark on the chat? Because Mark lives on that block, and he would know. Mark Isikoff?
We'll let's see him. We'll follow up.
I'm going to check a tax map to see if that's listed as a right of way or if that's shared property.
Mark knows everything.
That'd be helpful, Thomas.
Because right now it's shared property for us on this end. It says our property line's kind of in the middle of the alleyway. Same with them, but I don't know.
Yeah, Mark's not on.
Easement.
I'm gonna text him.
All right. Anybody else? I've spoken too much. Sorry.
I don't really have, too many objections to this. I would like to know about the roof deck and what kind of party deck it might be, because that does affect the neighborhood. And also, just as a sort of mild criticism of the design, I just wish it were funkier. I feel like we're a very eclectic neighborhood, and I think that, we are receptive to people, to a bit more daring. I don't really love the black that it was before, but I kind of wish it were funkier. But I do want to know about the roof deck.
And the electric charging.
Right. Yeah, we have a roof deck's about 1,890 square feet. Actually, in some ways, we reduced it from the original because it was even bigger. Where's the roof deck on this one? Yeah, the roof deck was a little larger on the first one, and I reduced it down because it kind of didn't make any sense where we're putting it. So we end up wrapping a little bit further back in this section, because the views are really kind of looking that way, not looking this way, and we're trying to keep it. We're off the 5th Street side, and we're on the Brunswick Street side a little bit, but we're still about 8 foot from the parapet there, 6 foot from the parapet from the alleyway. So we're trying to keep it inside the building, not right up against the parapet. And then, this is basically the amenity for the building. It's not really a kind of a party deck. I don't know how many people are really going to go up on these things every day, but it does come up here where we can, you can come to the roof deck by this elevator, and then you have an elevator lobby, and then all you have is this deck. Mostly coming out this way, you can see a little bit of the city, but you have to really go to this side to actually see the city, see Manhattan, and see.
I guess, and this is probably new for you to hear, Russ. You know, our concern with these things are when they get to a certain size. Not that it's going to be an everyday occurrence, but you know, from an occupancy standpoint, I think when I did the math on this, it was like 126 people could be, you know, on this roof at one time legally, which is, you know, clearly like everybody in the building plus several friends.
Yes.
And for us, you know, we've been fighting these roof decks because we get it. They're in the R5, but you know, it's a quality of life and a noise issue that we just really try to push developments to reduce them as much as possible, at least bring them off the edge of the parapet a bit where you can still enjoy a view, but have like a, you know, a series of planters or some sort of an acoustic mitigated, you know, measure that allows people to be up there without disturbing, you know, all of their neighbors. So just to give you a little bit of background on that.
I mean, we can add some stuff to that as well. I'm never a big fan of roof decks. My client already knows that. I don't like it because there's always issues with water sooner or later. But, so we could add some other like planter type thing.
We can certainly discuss with the developer if there's anything he would agree to as far as noise mitigation. I don't know.
Thank you.
I don't think he's here, but we can certainly talk to him about some sort of landscaping up there to try and keep some of the noise from the street.
Yes.
Yep, that's fine. I appreciate that. You know, he seems like a reasonable individual, so I enjoyed my discussion with him on that. That would be great. You know, I don't know how married you are to the size of it, but I do think that a roof as an amenity doesn't necessarily need to be that large, but you know, again, I leave it to you guys. All right. Anybody else? Sorry, we're running late.
I know, I'm sorry. One other thing. Were there plans for electric chargers with the parking?
We can do that. That's not a problem. Maybe that's easy to do. That's just adding charger stations to each of the areas, or just one for every two, because they're kind of, you could just put one here, one there, one there, one there, and you'd end up being able to have, everybody could have a charger system. And each charger system then would have to just be connected to the apartment. So this way they can have their own charging station. It's easy enough to do. I mean, okay. I've done it on other buildings. As long as it's easy to do, because I think that is the future we're trying to work towards. Yeah, that's I've done it for a lot of other buildings. It's just an easy upgrade for the electric stuff on this.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Thomas. So again, with this property, for everyone here, anything you think of, you wake up in the middle of the night with cold sweats, you're like, oh my God, I want to ask this question, send it to myself, send it to info@jcvillage.org if you so wish, and I'm happy to, you know, ping Russell, Thomas, or, you know, call Paul, who, like I said, I had a great conversation with on this property. So thank you guys for your time, and really appreciate you giving us this presentation.
Thank you very much for having us.
All right, also, we don't have the luxury of, you know, our normal asking the development teams to exit and we talk about what we just saw, because it's getting late. So I'm going to ask you if there are any comments that you didn't make to the development team during either presentation, email us, call me, text me. You have the info@jcvillage.org email, shoot something there. We'll keep the dialogue going on both the properties that we've seen tonight. Okay? And then I have one final, thank you, good night. I have one final Halloween themed slide to share with you. Since, I mean, I did the legwork of, you know, finding a Zoom photo that had people in costume. So these are the virtual meeting updates for the month of October. The planning board is meeting tomorrow night, city council caucus, which is how they set the agenda. That is a week from tonight on Monday, as they're always on Mondays. Pension board meeting is the Tuesday night. City council then meets on the 21st after they set the agenda on the 19th, and then you'll see ZBA, as we talked about tonight, on the 22nd, Historic Preservation Commission on the 26th, and the planning board meets again on the 27th. So fun-filled, Zoom-packed month. I encourage you all to join these in costume and stay safe, stay sane, and let us know if there's anything we can do for you. All right. Thank you, everyone. As always, I've really enjoyed seeing you. This is great attendance. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.